If you want more charisma, more impact, if you want to be a more dynamic person with people in general, this is what you need to know. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what three-legged dog means. Let's begin. For those of you that have followed me for a while, you know that outside of the love life area, I have a particular passion for what gives people impact and charisma. Now recently, I was on the Elvis Duran show, and I was going on an epic rant about ghosting and how people's insecurities lead them to give far too much time and energy to people who don't deserve it. Once I had finished my rant, Elvis, who is one of the greatest radio show hosts in America, showed everyone in that room and his audience exactly why he is so good at what he does. And he did it with 3 words. Listen to this.
Our time is so precious. You think that woman, when she gets 5 years from now, is going to look back on her life and say, thank God I spent all of that time agonizing over that guy who wasn't even thinking about me. Thank God I did that. No, she's going to look at a picture of herself from 5 years ago and say, look how beautiful I am. 20 years from now, she's going to look back and say, look how beautiful I was. Look what I had. Look at the assets I had. Look at the life that I had, the resources that I had, the time I had on my side. And I spent it texting and calling and agonizing and having conversation after conversation after conversation with my friends about a relationship that didn't exist. And there was someone out there waiting for me who was so much better, who actually deserved my time and attention that I could have been giving it to. Instead, I was giving it to this douchebag on the phone.
Three-legged dogs. Three-legged dogs.
Now, before I let this play on, let me ask you this. What is your curiosity level on a scale of 0 to 10 right now about what Elvis is going to say next? If it's anything like the people I was with in that room, it's at a level 12. You heard it in our reactions. Everybody in that room cannot wait for him to speak. Now listen to the rest.
Three-legged dogs.
What?
Have you ever had a dog? Have you ever had a three-legged dog? You know, I love three-legged dogs so
No, I
much.
do think they're quite... Yeah,
I'm actually thinking about ripping one of my dog's legs off. If a dog loses a limb, that dog doesn't spend one iota of a second worrying about, why did I lose my limb? Why am I now a three-legged dog? Now there's four-legged dogs. I don't really have what it takes to get up and run around and play anymore. Dogs aren't like that. A dog loses a limb, he immediately goes to the park and learns to run sometimes faster than they did with 4 legs. They don't care. They're just as happy. Losing that limb means nothing to them, and they go on to live an incredible life.
That might be my favorite thing I've ever heard you say.
I like a lot of things Elvis says, but this one completely blew me away. I remember sitting there in the room and thinking what he just did was genius, and the result of years and years, decades of experience in the radio world. I want to break down for you right now exactly what happened in that interaction. First, this was an incredible example of what we call a pattern break. Now, what is a pattern break? A pattern break is any moment in a conversation or an interaction where something happens that changes the dynamic, that shifts the energy, that breaks the normal rhythm of what's happening. Now, in this situation where I'm going on this long rant, it would be normal for Elvis to try to jump in at some point and wrestle the airtime back so that he could start speaking. In other words, he'd speak over me and try and get it back by force. The problem with that is in that scenario, both people lose their power because they just end up talking over one another. Another normal thing he might have done is once I've got to the end of my point, and frankly, this is what I'm used to, I would have finished my point and he would have said, Matthew, that's such a wonderful, elegant, articulately put point. I love that. But he didn't do that either. Instead, what he did was wait for me to finish and then very powerfully, with a different energy and a different cadence, come in and say 3 words. 3-legged dogs. And here's how you know a good pattern break. Everybody else is off balance because he knows where he's going with this and they don't, which means he's completely in control of this dynamic now. What's particularly interesting about this is Elvis didn't just break the pattern and have us all off balance. He also created massive curiosity. Now, why is curiosity so important in this situation? Well, think about it for a moment. Elvis could have broken the pattern just by raising his voice. He could have just said, okay, wait a minute, I have a point here. And all of a sudden, everyone would have stopped and listened. But he didn't just break the pattern. He said something so obscure, so strange, so out of context that everyone in the room was dying to know what he meant by three-legged dogs. We were giggling and laughing, and you heard some people under their breath saying, what? But in that moment, no one wanted to fill the silence because everyone was dying to hear the meaning of what he had just said. So after three-legged dogs, Elvis goes on to give the meaning. Now, what was the meaning in this context? That a dog can lose a limb and it doesn't sit there playing the victim asking, why me? It just gets on with living its best life. What he now has in the combination of three-legged dogs and the meaning behind it is one of the most powerful teaching tools known to us. Now get this, for the next 2 days after this interview, and I was on that show for a good hour, the only thing appearing on my Twitter feed was three-legged dog. That's what everyone was tweeting to me. Why is that? Why in an hour of content are there 3 words that people remember? Because a great metaphor conjures the profound lesson that he had behind it. An image of a three-legged dog becomes this easy way not just to connect with the lesson, but to remember the lesson. And by the way, just to prove to you how serious I am about deconstructing moments where people have impact and the fact that we can learn from those moments and apply it to ourselves, I was in real time on that show deconstructing what Elvis was doing and started talking about it. Listen to this.
Oh, I really love the three-legged dog. And by the way, can we just all appreciate I think everyone in life wants to be more like impactful and have more presence. Your delivery of that was just incredible.
Oh, please.
This fact that you started just with three-legged dog, a completely absurd
I got to do something.
beginning to a sentence.
I don't have a British accent.
And we all started laughing.
I know,
it's surreal.
and then this great long pregnant pause where you said nothing.
Well, because you looked at me like I was a three-legged dog.
Did.
And
He
then,
looked at
but
me
then,
like,
but then
"What?"
we have no choice but to wait and to find out what this means because you created an open loop which we had to close. That was brilliant.
Matthew, 7-legged octopus.
Elvis is a master of impact. It's one of the reasons I love being around him so much because every time I'm near him, it's like by osmosis, I'm learning people skills. I'm learning how to be more dynamic. So much so, by the way, that my brother Stephen Hussey once heard me on Elvis Duran and then immediately afterwards took his pen to paper and created a document deconstructing what I did in the first 5 minutes of the interview to have such massive impact. So the same thing I did to Elvis, deconstructing what he was doing, my brother did to me in even more detail and even more depth than I've done right here. So if you like this video, if you're like me and you love when we can deconstruct people and we can understand how to apply that to ourselves, you are going to adore this document. It's completely free, but it's something that will up your impact immediately in the first 5 minutes of any interaction, be it a speech, be it a boardroom meeting, be it an attraction with someone you like. Any situation you like, you'll be able to apply this. All you need to do is click the link. We'll put it here. It's howtogettheguy.com/behind the curtain. I will see you there.